Hadouken! What's going on, peeps? Mastermind here, and today I want to talk about the insane greed that I am starting to see in the video game industry that's starting to really concern me. Now, this has been a concern now for years. I'm talking back in the PlayStation 1 days, even prior to that, but it's getting so out of control now. It's just something I want to talk about. So before I get into that, the gameplay you're looking at here is Killer Instinct because it's awesome. It also kind of sets up where I want to start in this conversation, and that's free-to-play games. Now, this video isn't really focused on bashing free-to-play games because I feel like some of the pros with free-to-play is it does expand an audience, and if they do it right, if they do it well, then free-to-play can be great, and it does kind of fit and have its place in the video game market. Unfortunately, it's run rampant. Most times it's not free to play. Most times it's kind of a system used to kind of trick people into purchasing a lot of content and a lot of different things. So if we want to use like Killer Instinct for instance, Killer Instinct is a free-to-play game, but if you pay $20 for each season, then it's pretty much a $60 fighting game with a lot of content, a lot of characters. But if we look at the opposite and we look at what's happened with Street Fighter, where that wasn't a free-to-play game and you were still looking at less content as if it was a free-to-play game, less stages, less characters, and less modes, you feel ripped off. It rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. It didn't have a single player. The online wasn't really working well. You couldn't have more than one other person in a party. So, there was a lot of problems with the game. Still some issues with the game. They are going to improve it, and they are improving it. And Capcom did release a statement that from this point on, they're going to make sure that all the games that they release is going to be in a more complete state. And they acknowledge that they made a mistake regarding Street Fighter V. Now, you would think a company that has been making video games for this long would already know that. So them saying that kind of pisses me off even more because they should have known that. But again, this video isn't to bash Killer Instinct or bash Street Fighter or bash anything like that. I'm just using these as an example because obviously fighting games, I'm not going to say is the only focus on my channel, but I do play more fighting games on my channel than other games. But of course, I play all kind of games. I play everything. So anyway, business model as far as free to play, I think really sucks. It's a greedy cash grab. That's all it is. They use these tactics, these cheap psychological methods to get people to spend more money. It's similar to how I think the gambling industry is. And a lot of people who are gamblers are into a lot of these games on the mobile devices where they have to, purchase more coins and do that kind of stuff. And I think it's hurting the industry. And this model is actually starting to creep into the AAA stratosphere. Now, the reason why I say that is because we have a ton of games in the last couple of years that have been released that you're paying your full $60 for. I'm not talking about Killer Instinct. I'm more talking about games like Street Fighter or The Division or Destiny or, things like that where you feel like there's content missing. As much as I loved Titanfall, it was an incomplete game. That's just the truth when it was released, and I paid my full portion for the game, but it was just incomplete. There were typical standard features that you would expect from a first-person shooter that was not in the game. So we have been seeing this a lot, and it goes further than just game modes or content. Even sometimes graphics aren't totally complete or they rush things out, and this is becoming a real problem. And another thing to add to this is also they're announcing DLC way before the games even come out. You know why? Because they know that people are going to purchase the game. So with that in mind, they're already talking about DLC, which kind of bothers me because I think the model for DLC should be, hey, if our game does well and if the audience really likes it and wants more, then we will create content. Instead, what we're seeing is they're creating and developing these games. Simultaneously, they're also developing the DLC for these games, and they're holding some of that back and waiting for people to be salivating because the game is slightly incomplete. And that's a real problem in my mind. These business models are really hurting the industry. I watched Killer Instinct grow from what it was in Season 1 with just a couple of characters and a couple of stages to the incredible game that it is right now. But that was a free-to-play game that I spent a couple of bucks on just to get certain characters for Season 1. I don't want that for my AAA titles that I pay $60 up front for. I want a full game. I don't want to have to go out there and spend $60 and wait 3 years for the game to be fully realized. That's not what I want. Really, I'm getting tired of it. That's why I didn't buy the latest Call of Duty, the last Call of Duty. I did not touch Black Ops 3. And as much as I wanted to play it, I wanted to send my own personal message. I'm one person, it's $60. It had no effect on their sales whatsoever, but I'm sure that there were thousands of people like me who said, hey, you know what, I'm gonna skip this time. And that's happened with a couple of franchises, and I think companies are really starting to take notice. You have like Capcom, who really got hit with Street Fighter, and that's a big deal for Capcom because they don't make the money that Activision makes. They're not that kind of company. So when they have a failure, and I'm not gonna call Street Fighter failure, but when they have disappointing sales, that sends a real clear message. And I think what's happening now with Call of Duty and how they're trying to get people to buy the Call of Duty so much that they're saying, hey, you can get the Modern Warfare old maps and we're going to redesign them and they're going to look cool. And that's what everybody wants, but you have to go out and buy the full game to a Call of Duty that everyone was disappointed with. If you look at the numbers on YouTube as far as the dislikes that trailer got, it's the worst like game ever. And there's a reason for that, because people are tired of getting ripped off, tired of the annualized franchises that are only slightly improving on their game. They just don't want to take the risk. Unfortunately, marketing is making a lot of the decisions regarding video games, especially the annualized franchises, that should be left to the developers. They look at demographics, they take polls, they look at what's trending in other video games and what's trending in the media, and all of that goes into consideration when they start developing a game. And to some degree, it's totally understandable because obviously they're spending millions and millions of dollars developing these games and marketing them. So I can understand that. People who are handling those kind of decisions should really kind of shy away from how the developers want to present it to the audience. I understand that they obviously have to work with a budget and there are investors involved that want to make sure that their investment is going to pay off. I understand that, of course. I still think that they should leave it more to the developers than they currently do. So like I said in the beginning of this video, every once in a while something great comes along and people love it, and the same thing has happened with video games, but unfortunately as time goes on, everyone wants to make money off of it and it becomes a huge cash grab, and that's really unfortunate with video games. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel because we do have some developers that really do a great job. If you take a look at what's happening with Titanfall 2, they're taking their time with that. Uncharted was a phenomenal game. I gave that game a 9.5. I didn't do an official review on it on my channel because I received the game a little bit late, so it was kind of old news by the time I went through it. Mass Effect is another one. There's not one coming out every year. You can also look at Grand Theft Auto, what they've done with the Grand Theft Auto series and Red Dead Redemption, and even the break that they've taken from Assassin's Creed. Those are positive signs that companies are starting to look and say, hey, we need to go ahead and really work and make these games the best they can be. And even Capcom now is acknowledging that they had to make some changes. So those are positive signs, and hopefully we continue to see that trend continue more so than what it has been. And what we can do as consumers is not fall into these cash grabs. And no matter how badly we may think we want a game or how cool something looks, just be careful with where we put our money, because that's the ultimate thing that companies are looking for. It doesn't matter what you say in the comments on a YouTube video. What's more important is where you spend your money. And that is my rant and my opinion on Real Talk. Anyway, if you got something to say, please leave a comment down below. And thank you once again for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Mastermind out.